Hey guys, Beth at Ozark Prep Stutters and Century 21 Lee Mac here. All right, this is another in my real estate video series. Today, I'm going to address sellers. I know I'm always talking about buyers and all the things about buying a property, and it probably seems like I only work with buyers, and that's actually not correct. I work with both buyers and sellers. Am well versed in helping sellers get the most money for their property with the least amount of stress and hassle. And I think because it is a heavy seller's market in many areas of the country, lots of sellers may feel like they don't need a realtor, or it doesn't matter what realtor they use, or maybe they can sell the property themselves. And that this market's going to hold out forever, so there's really no reason to put a house up for sale now, or property or land or whatever. They can sit on it. I totally understand how somebody who has property or home to sell may feel that way. On the surface, all of that stuff sounds very reasonable and rational, but I'm going to tell you why that's incorrect thinking, and more importantly, how it can cost you money. So let's start with a little basic primer on how to sell a house and get the most amount of money for it. And first of all, I want to tell y'all that the reason I'm doing this video is because as a full-time professional realtor, this is what I do for a living, full-time. I'm not like a part-time realtor who's swinging cocktails on the side or selling, MLM, like face cream stuff, or, living with my folks, and so I only have to do a little bit of work here and there. I don't have any of those situations going on. I am a full-time realtor. This is what I do full-time for a job. And my part-time job is helping my husband run his company. So real estate is pretty much my whole life, my whole world. Aside from adorable little Duke, who you all have recently met, and Jacoby, who I'm trying to bring into the real estate world, because actually I think it would be good for him. All right, so all that being what it is, let me tell you what it takes to sell a property. And I'm going to hold the importance of who you choose to help you sell it till the end. And I do hope that you will stick it through all the way to the end, or at least fast forward to the end to hear that, because that's super important. And it's not just a sales pitch, and it's not just, me trying to toot my own horn or, anything like that. It is super important who you choose to help you sell and why. And I'm going to tell you why it will cost you a lot of money if you try and sell it yourself, okay? So whenever we go to sell a property, there are four main things that we have to take into account. And I was taught the acronym CAPE, C-A-P-E, okay? So the C stands for condition. The A stands for access, the P stands for price, and the E stands for exposure. As your agent, there is only one of those four things that I have complete and total control over, okay? You may think it's price, because you may think I tell you how much to sell your house for, but that's actually incorrect. So what is it that I have complete and total control over as your agent? It is exposure. How well I expose your home to buyers or your property, how well I expose your home and property to the wider market, and how well I market it. That's a very, very, very important aspect of getting top dollar for your property or your home. However, it's only one aspect, okay? So let's go back and start at the beginning. Let's start with, I need a haircut, y'all. Like, this hair is driving me crazy. All right, let's start with C for condition. So it is super important that whenever you go to put your house or your property on the market, it is in the best condition it can possibly be in, the very best. Now, here's the caveat to that. It is not always possible for the seller to get the property in prime condition to show it. There are many reasons, right? I work with sellers who have had family issues, who maybe have lost a family member. I have worked with sellers who have become disabled, got very sick, and had to sell. I worked with sellers who were relocating. They just were already gone and weren't able to make any changes. And there are lots of folks here in this current market that I'm working that are retired. And whenever they pass away, their children are often far away and the house is just left here and the kids have to deal with it. And they maybe haven't even seen the house for a year. They have no idea what the condition of the house is. And they just want to get rid of it. And so they just put it on the market. That's a shame because they could get more for it in most cases if they would put a little bit into it. But that's just the reality of it. So if you're thinking about selling your home or a piece of property and it is in rough shape, maybe the property has garbage on it, maybe the home needs some work, I don't want you to totally stress it and feel like, oh, well, I better not list it because I'm not going to be able to get a lot of money for it. That's not necessarily the case. Will you be able to get as much as you could if the property was in prime condition? Maybe not, but maybe. It depends on what else it has going on it. But maybe it depends on what else it has going for it. So let's move on to the A. A for access. In order for us to get you top dollar for your property or your home, in order for us to get the most exposure for you, we have to be able to show the property. We have to be able to show it. And the kiss of death on getting a property sold quickly and for top dollar is a seller who doesn't actually want to show the property. You don't want people coming through. You don't want to have people at different times of day or night. You don't like the idea of folks being in your house. The property is completely fenced off and it is locked and you don't want to give an access code. You don't want to put a lockbox on. All of those things are detrimental to selling your property. And it's a shame because I have seen that happen in the past, properties that have sat on the market for longer than they needed to and not sold for the amount that they should simply because they were so hard to show. I'm going to tell you a little secret about realtors. It's going to make some realtors mad at me, but people who are honest will know what I'm talking about. Most realtors are lazy when it comes to showing property. They are going to pick the easiest ones to show first. So let's say that there are 5 properties that a buyer wants to see. And the agent lines them all out, gets them all organized to show. Generally, they start with the ones that are easiest to show first. So for example, if a house is vacant, that's super easy to show. It's vacant with a lockbox on it. You can show it pretty much anytime, day or night. You don't have to worry about calling ahead for an appointment. You don't have to worry about pets. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just go show it. So those are usually number 1 on the list for agents to show. The second easiest properties to sell are the ones that say call and show. So what that means is, yes, it is occupied. There are people living there, but they have told their agent, you have other agents call me. If I don't answer the phone, just come on over and show it. They're trying to make it as easy as possible. So I would call and maybe they would answer and I would say, hey, I have a client. We're in the neighborhood. We'd like to see the house in 10 minutes. Is that possible? Yep, come on over. Or I call and they don't answer and I just go on over. There's a lockbox on the door. I can take my clients in and show the property. Those types of properties, vacant and call show, are by far the easiest to show and therefore the easiest to sell because you have immediate access. The properties that tend to sit on the market and therefore end up selling oftentimes for less than they should are the ones where the owners give agents a very hard time about showing. I only want you to show my property on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 12. Okay, but my client's only in town on Friday and Saturday. Ones that say no weekend showings, those are horrible because most buyers work and therefore they have to shop on the weekend. In Vegas, oftentimes there's a lot of investment properties in Vegas, and oftentimes they would want you to write an offer before you even saw the house. And they would just tell the agent, write it contingent on seeing it. So most normal buyers would like to actually see a property before they put an offer in on it. No, people are funny that way. So access is super important. As the seller, you control the condition and you control the access. Realtor doesn't have anything to do with that. We can advise you, but ultimately you're the one who makes those decisions. The last thing that you have control over as the seller is the price. Now, a good agent is going to have run the comps. They're going to have done a complete comparative market analysis on your property. They're going to look at properties similar to yours that have sold, what they've sold for. They're going to do a very thorough walk of your home and property to see what's great about yours, what maybe isn't so great about yours, and they're going to come up with a price range. They're going to say, you know, look, the house is in really rough shape and it's hard to show. I think it's worth $100,000 in that condition. If you fix a couple of things and you give us, you know, a lot of access to show, I think it could be worth $130,000. If you fix everything, put a lockbox on it and let me show it as much as I possibly can, I think you could get $150,000. They'll give you some type of range like that. So you can make the decisions. What gets sellers in trouble is whenever the agent says, Mr. Seller, I think you have a great home and a nice piece of property here, but it's in really rough shape. I need you to clean it and paint it and fix the landscaping, and I think you could get $150,000 for it. And the seller says, I'm not doing any of those things, and I still think it's worth $150,000. Put it on the market. Or the seller has, let's say, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,500 square feet, and the house next door is 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath, and it sold for $160,000. And so the seller says, well, mine is worth $160,000 because I have a better house than the one next door. Well, maybe, but you're minus a bedroom and a bathroom. Whenever sellers get fixated on price like that and they don't want to listen to their agent, who should be a full-time professional who does this for a living, so should be able to advise you pretty well, it's a problem. It's the kiss of death. Houses sit on the market. Seller gets mad. Why haven't you sold my house yet? Agent's like, well, I think it's overpriced. Let's do a price drop. Seller gets mad because they don't want to do a price drop. So I'm going to tell you whose fault I personally think that is when you get in a situation like that. A lot of people aren't going to like it, but I'm going to tell you. I think it's the agent's fault for taking the listing. Don't take overpriced listings with unrealistic sellers. It's just a waste of everybody's time. And if an agent does not have the strength of courage and integrity to be honest with the seller and say, look, you're asking too much. It's not going to sell at that price. You've got to come down a little bit. You've got to at least be in this range. Well, how are they going to negotiate hard for you? Negotiation starts whenever you take the listing. Same with commission. I'll talk about that later, but don't hire a realtor based on commission. That's a big mistake, and it'll end up costing you a lot of money. All right, so we're at cap. We haven't got to the E yet to make it cape. So condition, access, price, all things that the seller ultimately controls. The last thing is exposure, and that is the one thing that the agent controls. And this is when it gets important that you have a full-time professional agent who knows what they're doing and has a little marketing savvy or is willing to hire somebody to market the property. So I'm going to tell you one of the biggest issues that I see. I've seen it in every market I've been in. I still see it today. And that is sellers hire agents who will not spend the money on professional photos of the property. They get in there and they take these horrific cell phone photos, okay? Over 85% of consumers look for houses online before they look in person. Even realtors, the way that we work with buyers, I have a whole bunch of buyers right now. They're all set up with searches in the MLS. I put in their criteria, and whenever a property comes on the market that matches that criteria, they get an email so they can check it out. How are they checking it out? They're looking at pictures. They're looking at pictures online. So you can have a beautiful, amazing property, but if the pictures stink, buyers aren't going to want to look at it. They're going to go for the one with the pretty, glossy, shiny photos first every time. I've seen it over and over and over. And I've even seen it to the point where photos maybe were a little enhanced. And I could tell the property was not going to be in person what it was in the photos. But most consumers cannot tell that. They don't do this for a living. They're not in houses all the time. They don't know what to look for. And so they don't realize that. They go for the pretty glossy photos. So don't hire an agent who's going to take cell phone photos. It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying you cannot get some good photos with your cell phone, but I think y'all know what I'm talking about. Toilet seats up, a picture of a bathroom, and all you can see is a little corner of the sink and a toilet with the lid up. The bedrooms look like they're 4 feet by 4 feet. The lighting's horrible. You can't see the closets. That's no bueno. And here's the thing that really bugs me. This is what really bugs me about all that. To hire a professional photographer, it's really not that expensive. But agents get cheap, especially with lower price listings. I have always hired professional photographers, even for my low-end listings, with the exception of the times when my office supposedly was going to have professional photos done. And yeah, I'll never do that again. I will forever hire a pro if, the office isn't going to send an actual pro, because it's that important. It's super important. The other thing that's super important in today's day and age is video. You need to have excellent video marketing of your property. Now, I personally happen to have this little YouTube channel. It's still pretty small, but I still get a lot of views and a lot of traffic. I get a lot of people. It looks like I only have 500 subscribers, which is true, like 550, something like that. But a lot of folks don't subscribe and they reach out to me. So it is super important that video marketing is part of your realtor's bag of tricks. The next is an agent who will market to your local community, especially if your property is in town. Very, very often, folks will know somebody that they would actually like to live next to that they can recommend to buy a house. So you got to have an agent who will actually market to the neighborhoods. Putting up a sign in the front yard is not enough. Putting up a sign in the front yard, sticking it in the MLS, and praying that somebody is going to show up to buy it is not enough. Even in a hot market, it's not enough. You have to market the property correctly for it to sell at the high end. I can't believe I can't believe the stats that I'm seeing on these properties that, some of these properties are selling for 10, 15, 20% below list price. So how much of that was, it was severely overpriced to begin with, and how much of it is, it just wasn't marketed well? That's the question. And you don't want to be the one that loses out on that. So, for those of you who haven't been watching me for a while and don't know this, I owned a professional marketing company for 15 years. I did marketing for multi-million-dollar national companies. I was their entire marketing department in some instances. And I know how to do print media. I know how to do electronic media. I know how to talk a property up. And that's important. You need an agent who's going to do all that for you. It's super important. And what type of agent is going to be able to do all that for you? It's going to be somebody who does this full time. It's got to be somebody who is a full-time pro, who understands how all of this works. If you have bought and sold property with an agent who made it look super easy, congratulations. Because this is not easy. It is not. It may look easy and you may think like, oh yeah, you sign some papers, you throw a sign in the yard, but there's nothing to it. But if that's what your realtor is doing, that's not a quality realtor. If you have somebody who really knows what they're doing, trust me, they're working uber hard behind the scenes. In Vegas, we saw a lot of discounters. They were agents who would say, oh, I'll list your property for 1% or 2%. And they would come over, they would shoot some photos, they would stick it in the MLS, and you would pay them 1% for that. If you wanted anything extra, you wanted professional photos, you wanted somebody to do the contract for you, all that kind of stuff, you were going to pay extra, a la carte. You still have to pay the buyer's agent. And in Vegas at that time, it was 2.5 to 3%. So this whole, I'm going to sell your house for you for 1%, first of all, that's a bold-faced lie. It's not going to happen. You got to pay the buyer's agent. So is that the type of agent you want to do business with? Somebody with low integrity? Maybe that's not the best person to help you with the biggest asset most of us will have in our lives. The other thing is trying to sell it yourself, especially in a market like this. It's super hot. I see for sale by owner signs all over the place all the time. Generally, the reason people try and sell it themselves is because they have talked to a realtor and they don't like what the pricing structure looks like. They don't like the fact they would have to pay commission, and almost always they feel like the realtor has undervalued their property. Again, if you hire a full-time professional, all we do is do this. We've got a pretty good idea of what your property is worth and what it's going to sell for. If you choose not to listen, that's on you. That's fine. Like I said, you ultimately control price. But hire a good agent and you will net at the whole end of the deal the most amount of money. It's been a while since I've looked up these stats, but it used to be National Association of Realtors put out stats about how much it actually costs for sale by owners to sell the property themselves. And at one time, I think it was an average of 17% below what homes with realtors sold for. So if your realtor, if the total commission to you was going to be 10%, well, you've just lost an additional 7% because you're trying to do it yourself. Plus, it's a hassle. Like, you don't realize all the work that goes into actually selling a house, right? So you, Mr. Seller, should not ever, 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 ever be at the house whenever agents are bringing buyers through. Buyers need to be able to see themselves in the property. They need to be able to see it as their property. And that's very hard to do when Mr. Seller is there chatting and talking and getting in the way. Agents know how to show property. Right? If you had a good list agent, all the important features of your property are already going to be listed. And if they're not, a good buyer's agent is going to be able to find them and point them out anyway. You really don't need to be there. That's pure ego. Get your ego out of it, because ego does not usually match up with top dollar sales price. Okay? So just stay away. Well, how are you going to stay away if you're a for sale by owner? You're not. So you're going to be showing it to people who aren't qualified, to looky-loos, to people who are just out on a weekend drive and saw the sign. And yeah. One of the things a professional realtor is going to do before they take a buyer out, they're going to have qualified that buyer. They're going to have made sure that they actually, have money, have a job, can pay for the house. That's like the first thing we do. That's pretty important. And, whenever you're selling it by yourself, there's nobody to clear those looky-loos out for you. You are stuck with every single person who calls. So that's why, just leave it up to the professionals. Tell us how much you need to net, and we'll be really honest with you on if it can happen or not, okay? So, to sum up, this is good stuff. Condition, access, price, exposure. That's the 4 keys to getting your property or your home sold for top dollar. Key number 5, always use a full-time professional realtor. Key number 6, don't trust the sale of what is most likely your largest asset to a discounter. You get what you pay for. That is very, very true. Pay for somebody who knows what they're doing, knows their worth, and can negotiate. If an agent can't even negotiate their own commission with you or show you their own value, like, how are they going to negotiate for your behalf on the sale? Right? Like, that's just kind of common sense, okay? And last one is, don't be a FISBO. That's what we call them in the biz. FISBOs, for sale by owner. Just save yourself the time, the headache, all of that. Hire a good, quality, professional agent who can get it done for you and who will help you net the most amount possible. And that's it. All right, I hope there's been some helpful tips in here. I hope that if you do have a property to sell, you will call me because I will get it sold for you. I will do my very, very best to sell it for you at the top of the market as quickly as possible with the least amount of headache to put the most amount of cash in your pocket. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want. All right, so that's it. That sums it up for me. That is the short guide to selling your home for the highest amount of money in the fastest amount of time with the least amount of stress. And it really doesn't matter if it's a super hot seller's market. Like I said, I'm seeing properties expire off the market and I'm seeing properties sell for a lot lower than list price. So that's always a shame whenever that happens. And you can control just about all of it. But it all starts with hiring a full-time professional realtor who's going to do their very best for you. It's going to put you first, your needs first, and get the job done for you. I would love to be that agent for you. If you have something to sell, hit me up. My contact info is all over here. And for everybody else, I will catch you on the next one.